Welcome to the introduction to Money Quotient and the True Wealth Planning Process. I'm Amy Mullen, the president of Money Quotient, and I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of the history of Money Quotient, who we are, and how we got to where we are. I'm going to share about the philosophy and the research that went into the development of our tools and resources, and also the training and education that we have for advisors. We have also developed our own specific delivery model for financial planning or discovery process. It's been called different things, but we call it True Wealth Planning. So I'm going to share with you a bit about how that was designed and the various discussion topics that we suggest advisors talk about with their clients in order to get good results. And when I talk about good results, I mean that they are motivated and engaged in the financial planning process. They're motivated to take action and implement the financial strategies that are recommended. They adopt healthy financial behaviors, and they build trust and commitment with their advisors. And they also hopefully experience higher levels of life satisfaction in the whole process as well. Towards the end, I can give you a little bit of a tour of the materials directory if you're interested in becoming an MQ partner, what you would have access to, and then also the how you become an MQ partner. So we have some education requirements in order to utilize our tools and materials. So starting off with a little bit about the history of Money Quotient, we like to share our why. So these pictures are of the beginnings of this life work of Carol Anderson. She's the one sitting on the swing with me, her daughter, Amy. And the other picture is of me and my brother. So it was about this time in my mother's life. She was around 35, I would say, that there were a few pivotal points that sent her in this direction. One was that all of a sudden, unexpectedly, my father left our family, and she had been focusing her time on understanding how to raise her kids. Childhood development was what she studied in college, and it was very unexpected. So this left her thinking about, how do I raise these two young kids on my own? And it was very quickly realized that she had no idea what to do with her personal finance. She was not educated in that, and quickly also discovered that she was not alone, that there were a lot of people who've never had education in personal finance. And it wasn't just the preschool teachers like herself, but also it didn't really fit her stereotype of who she thought would be well educated in this area, such as doctors and lawyers. She felt like maybe those would be the people who understand their finances, but also recognizing that they too did not necessarily know what was going on in their financial lives. So she became a big advocate for financial education, financial literacy. And in seeking out her own financial education, she happened to fall upon research that shocked her. It showed that even when people sought out financial education for themselves, there was actually little to no statistical correlation to them receiving that education and actually following through with adopting what they learned or changing their own behavior. So essentially, financial literacy programs have been ineffective. And that was super fascinating to her. She didn't quite understand, if people are getting it for themselves, why aren't they implementing it? Why aren't they taking positive steps in their own lives? And that really started this whole journey. When she met my stepfather and got married, she had an opportunity to go back to school. And this is what she decided to study and understand what are the missing pieces that get people to take action in their financial lives. So, a long story short, there is about 3 decades of research and development that has gone into what we now offer at Money Quotient. And I'll be telling you bits of that along the way. But first of all, I want to share the mission of Money Quotient. First of all, the mission of Money Quotient is to facilitate the exploration and implementation of a values-based life center approach to financial planning. We believe this holistic process engages individuals and empowers them to maximize their resources and live meaningful and purposeful lives. To this end, we conduct innovative research, provide the highest quality tools and training, and nurture a community of like-minded professionals who truly want to affect positive change in the lives of those they serve. So, under this umbrella, we actually have two sister organizations. We have Money Quotient Inc., where we are providing the education directly to financial professionals, whether they are planners. Most of who we've been talking to over the years are financial planners, but the materials are also great to be used by coaches and counselors and even educators as well. We have developed, based on the research, we developed our own kind of turnkey model, basically a way of delivering financial planning that will lead to better results with clients. We've developed a whole practice management resource library as well. So everything an advisor might need or a coach or counselor might need to create this process, we've got it all, and including training and consulting. So teaching facilitation skills, effective communication skills. We call all this education, where we give this education, we call it the School of True Wealth. It's really focused around what we have developed over the last 30 years. Then we have a nonprofit side. We've done a lot of collaborations with various universities to conduct research. Some of that I'm going to talk about today. And some of these universities have also been able to use our materials, testing them out on various projects. And also, it's regularly used in the FPA residency programs too for case study work. We hope in the future, it's always been one of my dreams that we build out a platform for advisors to be able to do pro bono activities or workshops. Obviously, they're already using the materials in their own pro bono endeavors, but we were hoping to actually create a platform to make that really easy for advisors to use. And we also offer education from our nonprofit as well, and we call that our MQ University. So we, in terms of one of the things that Carol realized is that in order to have a really successful client planner relationship and get good results on the other side, it's really necessary to take a multidisciplinary approach and look through various lenses to try and understand what would actually lead to the best results. And so the next two slides I'm sharing are just a sampling of the various theories and concepts that we've taken a look at and used as a lens in our development of our tools, resource, and financial planning process. So a lot of this actually has come from some of Carol's early areas of study, like family systems theory, but then bringing in a lot of the other important understandings, like, for instance, self-determination theory, adult development theory, really understanding adults and what brings them to fully engage in learning and applying that learning. Obviously, what are the skills that the advisor might need to have in order to be effective at this work? And empathetic listening is certainly one area. Positive psychology is kind of a large umbrella. There's a lot of things underneath that that are important to the work that we are doing, such as appreciative inquiry. And one that's not on here either is a model that we talk about quite a bit, which is motivational interviewing. This is another facilitation technique that really helps build the motivation within the client to take steps forward themselves. Stages of change, understanding how people make transition is really important. There's a lot of psychological aspects to understand. And then personal coaching skills are, again, another skill an advisor could have to be successful. So this is just a sampling. There's a lot from neurology that we talk about, sociology, effective communication, lots of different disciplines that we use to create an effective process. So I will say, first and foremost, Money Quotient is an educational organization. So we offer a lot of opportunities for financial professionals to learn, understand their clients better, and develop skills themselves to continue to do better. Webinars, workshops, and courses are open to anybody who wants to participate. You can go to our event calendar and register for any of those. The trainings that we hold are typically for those who want to become Money Quotient partners and specifically utilize our tools and materials. So we focus on really deepening the advisor's knowledge and understanding of all the different tools at their fingertips and the purpose of them, what you're getting out of them, and then how to navigate the conversations around them. And I'll share more about that. But all of these opportunities come with quite a bit of CE. So if you are a CFP, there's lots of, but almost everything we offer has CFP credit. And if you are in a state that requires IAR credits, we have recently been approved as an IAR sponsor, and so we are beginning to apply our different workshops and courses and trainings for that. We've had a few approved so far. And also for those who have the AFC credential from the AFCPE organization, this is typically for coaches and counselors. Our fundamentals of true wealth planning has been accepted for 18 AFC credits, and we also intend to have a lot of our educational opportunities cover credits from that organization also. So check out our event calendar. We will put a link to that in the follow-up email. But now I want to go into a little bit more about the Money Quotient philosophy and explain a little bit about what Carol discovered in terms of the missing pieces that really move people into action. And I often use Simon Sinek's Start With Why TED Talk as a way to help describe this. I'm sure most people have seen this. Even if you have, I'd highly recommend going back and watching it again because you can get kind of new insight from it each time you watch it. But in that TED Talk, he explains a communication dynamic that he has observed which is represented on the left side by this kind of target looking thing, and talks about how logically most humans tend to use this communication dynamic from the outside to the center. So beginning from the outside. Um, and but he has also observed that professionals and leaders who are very successful in getting people to work with them or follow their movement actually follow this communication dynamic in the opposite direction. So I'll give you an example. If you are a financial planner and you're hoping to motivate somebody to work with you, maybe you're in a networking situation and you share with somebody that you are a financial planner, they ask, what does a financial planning planner do? It'd be very logical and normal to say, well, I help people with investment management and retirement planning, estate planning. We take a look at insurance, education funding, and kind of run down the list of services that you provide, which kind of satisfies that what ring. And if that person happens to still be interested in hearing more, then they may ask, "Well, how do you do all these things for people?" And that's when you might get into the how ring of we use these various software programs to do analysis and run different scenarios to help them understand what's possible, and where they might be taking risks, all of that sort of thing. But rarely does that conversation go into the why piece, which people typically misunderstand also. I think when an advisor is asked, why do you do the work that you do? A typical answer would be, I want to help people. I want to make an impact in people's lives. Uh, and is probably, part of the values that they have that brought them into this business. However, what Simon Sinek meant by your why is really about your personal story. What has occurred in your own life to make you passionate about this work? So, oftentimes I hear stories like an advisor, or, they when they were younger, they had an aunt that was screwed over by an insurance broker or something, and it put that aunt in a difficult financial situation. And this advisor never wanted that to see that happen to anyone else's aunts. And so they got into the financial planning in order to help people in the right way. So stories like this are what Simon really means. In fact, stories like the one I shared with you about Carol Anderson, my mother, um, that is really the piece that connects people and gets them interested and motivated to move forward. So on the right side of the screen is a rough diagram of if you were to take a slice of an individual's brain, it kind of lines up with this communication dynamic that Simon Sinek shared. So the neocortex, our analytical part of our brain, understands language, facts, definitions of things. It can understand steps to getting somewhere. So it's aligned with that what ring, but it's not responsible for building any sort of motivation to take action. So that financial planner who went down the list of services, they can probably understand a bit about what those terms mean, but there's no desire all of a sudden to, it doesn't build some sort of motivation to be like, yeah, I want that or I need that. And it's really the limbic brain, the emotional brain, that is responsible for building that desire to take action, or move forward. So I often say, action follows emotion. And if you think about both ends of the spectrum, when people feel anxious or nervous or scared, there's like an urgency to do something so that uncomfortable feeling can go away. Also, when people are very excited about something, they're inspired by something, they feel an urgency to do something because, they want to get there faster or something. So you can see how it's really the emotional arousal that gets people to take action. I think a lot of people have learned find the pain point tactics. This has been a successful sales tactic when you're selling products because you've gotten them in this emotional arousal. You can get them to sign the paper right away. But when you're working in a financial planning world, that is not actually as successful because of the fact that this is not those negative feelings are not a sustainable behavior change. In other words, they may come to your office because they feel anxious or fearful, but as soon as you start talking with them about how you'll be able to help them, then that anxiety and fear starts to come down. And now there isn't the emotion that gets them to move forward. So if you've always wondered, like, why in my getting acquainted meetings, why can't I get more of those people to sign on with me? It's probably because you've helped to reduce that emotional arousal they have, and then they go home and they don't take the steps necessary. And this is also what Carol believes is part of why financial literacy courses has not been very effective. They go to it out of fear. They get the education. Just by getting the education, that fear and anxiety goes away, and then they don't actually take the steps necessary. It's kind of crazy, but true. So positive emotions leads to behavior change, lasting behavior change. When there's something they're excited about, they keep wanting to work towards it. Whew, that was a lot. But overall, this is the piece that Money Quotient brings to the table. So this is the equation that Carol came up with that really started the whole Money Quotient journey. So the MQ in this equation represents a person's overall financial well-being. And that's made up of two important components. EQ is their emotional quotient, and it's purposefully put first in this equation because it's the emotion that motivates a person to learn or to get information. So the EQ is their awareness, a measurement of their awareness of their own emotions and how that affects their behaviors, their decisions, and taking it into consideration um, when making decisions. So I'll make a brief distinction here. In a lot of the early behavioral finance studies around behavior, it was suggested to advisors that we understand the emotions in order to set them aside so that the client can make completely objective decisions, or how can we understand the emotions in order to manipulate the situation to get them to the objective decisions. And that is not what we're talking about. What we talk about is actually taking those emotions into consideration when making decisions. So an example would be if a person feels a lot of stress and anxiety about having a mortgage, they're just not comfortable with that level of debt. The objective advice might be to keep the mortgage and pay it off at a certain rate to take advantage of the tax benefits, the tax credits or something. But if this individual is feeling this level of stress over a long period of time, it could potentially cause health issues for them. So when we're taking the emotions into consideration, the best decision for that person may be to go ahead and pay off the mortgage if they're able to, because it takes that weight off of their shoulders and they can focus on other things. So that's what I mean when we're talking about taking those emotions into consideration. The IQ in this equation is their level of financial education, knowledge, their comfort level with being able to make decisions for themselves. So, both of these components are important to an individual's overall sense of financial well being. So there's this emotional component and there's a rational component. Emotional components tend to come from a gut feeling. A lot of times we feel emotions, but the reasons why are in our subconscious or the full context to it. You might hear people say, I'm not going to go this direction because it just doesn't feel right or something like that. Um, uh, and so it's obviously very subjective. But we like to think the rational side is objective when actually it's quite subjective as well, because of confirmation bias. We tend to focus on the facts and data that align with something we already believe, and we ignore the facts and data that contradict what we believe. This is a natural human thing to do, and there's examples of it all over our country right now. And it's where these two overlap that create that individual's reality. We all have our own reality, we all have our own frame of reference, and this is where we make decisions from. So, part of what Money Quotient aims to do is to help advisors and their clients actually help their clients become much more aware of their own frame of reference and help advisors to understand their frame of reference as well, because it helps them to present their financial recommendations in a particular way that they can relate to. It also helps them modify the way that they communicate with those clients as well to feel connected with them. So, what Carol discovered is when we bring in more kind of personal life type conversations, we're tapping into that emotional brain, and the conversations become a whole lot more relevant and meaningful. So, we're connecting essentially the limbic brain with the neocortex brain. The life conversations taps into the emotions, and then the financial conversations are for particular reasons or for, connected to something personal that's going on in their life. So a life planning process helps advisors to do just this with their clients. And so there's kind of a practical process that we have laid out that leads to higher levels of self-awareness and being able to uh, create a design of a life that becomes the foundation for the financial plan. So, in this life planning process, you begin with guiding the client in uncovering their own core values. Oftentimes, those are in the subconscious brain. We develop them over our lifetime, but they're not like readily obvious to us. So, uncovering core values and the things that really drive us, motivate us, when those become clear, then we guide them in developing a vision of what an ideal life looks like with all of these components included. That boils down to very specific goals. Those goals are motivating. They create that positive feeling that creates that urge to take action. So if they've got their values, they've got their vision, they've got their goals, they're now very motivated, and you provide the strategies. And now they have all of the pieces that help make everyday decisions very easy. They know there's a quote, when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. So they will know what's going to take them closer to that vision or what will take them away from that vision. They won't be as distracted by what the Joneses are doing when they know what's important to them. So not only does this totally make sense, this is not rocket science, it's understandable, but also we have scientific proof that it is quite effective. So this is one of the studies that Carol was involved in back in 2007 and 8. And there was a white paper that was published on the results of this. It was sponsored by FPA and the CFP board. And they wanted to take a look at how elements of a life planning process could foster success or successful results. Would they foster successful results with clients? So very high level. Um, they sent out surveys to financial planners as well as to their clients to get both people's perspectives. And high level results were basically when these elements were, which is values clarification processes, visioning processes, goal setting processes that led to more meaningful and fulfilling type goals that have intrinsic reward, when those were part of the financial planning process, there was extremely strong statistical correlation to trust and commitment with that advisor, retention. They said they never planned to leave that advisor. They were completely satisfied with all the services. They had completely cooperated, meaning implementing all the financial strategies. They felt more willing to share additional financial information with that advisor as well as personal information. And the referrals, I mean, we had this study, but then there was another study that was done after this that showed the referrals were like way bigger, like 10 times bigger to friends and family from the clients of these advisors. So pleasantly surprised by the effectiveness of these in the success of the planner-client relationship. Oh, okay. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the true wealth planning process specifically. There are four inquiry categories or topic areas that we are built into the process that we've created, and we highly suggest advisors cover all four of these topics in order to get certain results with their clients. So the first topic is satisfaction and values. And the reasons why I'm going to kind of talk about this a little bit and help you understand how it relates to a successful financial plan. But first of all, satisfaction is clearly a subjective matter. Usually, a person will only feel satisfied if they are measuring up to their own definition of success. And we have different definitions of success. For instance, you could have two clients that both make $200,000 a year. And one of those clients feels like they're living their best life. It's very abundant. They are doing all the things that they love to do. Another client could feel scared and anxious, like they're behind and they might run out of money. They might have a scarcity mindset. So it's not about, right, the number that they have. Satisfaction is far more of an emotional issue than it is a practical issue. And also, there's a direct connection between how an individual is spending their resources and the level of life satisfaction they feel. So if a person is spending their time, their energy, and their financial resources in a way that's aligned with their values, they feel a sense of life satisfaction, and also the opposite is true. When they are not spending in alignment with their values, they tend to feel dissatisfied or unhappy with life. So we've all heard stories about very wealthy people who are unhappy. And even, I mean, really unfortunate stories about how some has even created or committed suicide in some stories. This might be a example of how They were maybe more focused on the Joneses and spending their money and their time and resources in ways that were not aligned with their own values. Unfortunately, a lot of times that is in the subconscious. They don't recognize that this is the problem. They're not focused on the things that are most important to them. So, an example of a tool that Money Quotient partners would have access to that allows the client to kind of explore what are their own core values, and how are they spending their resources in alignment with that. Personal insights about life balance is one of many tools that we have that help to uncover core values. These are fun tools to go through with couples as well. They really enjoy talking about these things together. Another inquiry category is biography. Our past experiences, and particularly in our childhood, when we're very observant of adults and what they're doing, it basically creates our frame of reference that we have today. So the way that we consciously and unconsciously, how that influences our beliefs and our behaviors. A lot of times it's what's formed our automatic behaviors. It affects what we're scared of today, what we're concerned of. So, an example might be if you had a client who witnessed their parents really struggle through the recession or something, then maybe today as an adult, they feel very nervous and scared about their financial situation, even when it's doing quite well. So, our past creates our fears and concerns. It also, in the same way, creates our values and priorities and things that we are passionate about, things that we aspire to do as well. So, learning about a person's journey through life can raise their own awareness of their values, things they're concerned about, all of these things, but also it helps the advisor to understand the client as well. So, money memories is one of a handful of tools that we have that help the client explore their own biography and gain insights from their experiences. Transitions is the third category, which is all of our clients go through a ton of life transitions. In fact, we think about change as really a constant in our lives. We're always dealing with change, whether it's planned changed or not. If it's something that happens unexpectedly, we can't help or we can't stop change from happening, but we can oftentimes do a better job at anticipating or preparing for change. In fact, it's important to understand too that change is far more of a psychological process. There's a shift in identity oftentimes. There's a grieving of moving from one scenario, and there can be excitement in moving to a new scenario, but it's far more of a psychological process than just a financial or, tangible physical type thing. And it's important to recognize too that in order to help people make smooth transitions, it doesn't just take the practical strategies, but helping them to build emotional resilience can be really helpful in moving through transition. So, personal insights about change is one of the tools that helps a client think about and learn from past transitions they've gone through to think about what can help support them, what relationships, what resources, what are things that they can put in place in advance that will help them move through this transition, and that helps to build emotional resilience. They build more confidence when that transition is coming. And the last one is around goals. uh, what would we do without goals as part of the financial planning process? But it's helpful to kind of take a step back and think about the fact that a lot of people don't enjoy goal setting processes. They might have negative feelings about goal setting for a lot of reasons. Maybe they've failed at reaching goals in the past, or they've had goals pressed upon them in work environments. I mean, in the financial industry, oftentimes there's sales goals that are pressed upon people. There could be low self-efficacy, meaning they don't believe they have the skills, knowledge, or ability to make the change, so they don't believe they're capable. But there's a lot of reasons that there might be some mental obstacles to fully engaging in a goal setting process. But there's easy, simple things that advisors can do to kind of reshape their perspective on goal setting so that they more fully engage in the process. One of the things that we talk about in our training is completely flipping the SMART goals on its head. So everyone has learned, our goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and tangible, which could not be more boring and uninspiring. And frankly, unrealistic. You can't expect a person to fully understand what is realistic and what is attainable. So, something that can be far more enjoyable to talk about and more inspiring to work towards, creating those positive emotions, is goals that are significant, that are actually meaningful to them, and they feel attracted to working towards those goals. Goals that are going to not only be rewarding at the end, but also I think it's important for advisors to help clients think about benchmarks along the way and how can we celebrate progress, making it, kind of more of an enjoyable journey to getting there. And also thinking about the timeliness of this. We're all extremely busy people all the time. And so when you have too many things that you're trying to work towards at once, it can end up being disappointing when we're not able to accomplish everything we want to. So timeliness is very important too. The Wheel of Life is an example of a tool in our visioning and goal setting process that helps them to identify meaningful goals that are aligned with values. So our process, it's a 5-stage process. These different categories are sprinkled in to each of these 5 stages. We have purposefully created our model to help advisors deliver on the 7-step CFP process in the most effective way possible. So our explore stage is when you are with a prospect, essentially, establishing what that relationship might look like. Our engage and envision really bring the data gathering and goal setting to a much more in-depth and motivating sort of experience. Our Enlighten stage is when you're actually delivering the recommendations, a draft of those recommendations. And then our Empower stage is when you're supporting them in implementation. So we do, with all of our tools and resources, we have these client meeting templates, which is the place that most advisors will start. This is like our recipe. If you follow the recipe and use the tools in the certain meetings, you will absolutely get the 4 main outcomes we're working towards. Now, like with any recipe, once you really understand the ingredients and how it flows and what you're working towards, then you can use the materials more ad hoc. But it's always a good thing in the beginning for advisors to experience how it was designed so they can really feel or see how the information leads to these four outcomes. So, a higher awareness of the client's own beliefs and attitudes about money. I truly believe that if you spend time in this biography section and they become aware of what has influenced their perspective and behaviors today, they will then make a decision as to whether those behaviors need to change to help them be more successful or not. So you're not acting as a parent trying to get them to stop spending or trying to get them to, do something. But when they become aware of how their behaviors might be hindering them from reaching some inspiring goal that they have, they commit to making the change themselves, which leads to obviously more sustainable behavior change. They also have a clarity around their own values, motivation, vision, and meaningful goals. So they're very motivated to move forward. You provide the missing piece of the financial strategies, and they have all the components necessary to make decision making very easy for them moving forward. So, those are the specific goals. You may understand that there is a few organizations out there that might also offer some financial or life planning or behavioral type trainings or coaching. The main things I think that differentiate Money Quotient is the fact that we've always been very research and evidence based. Our materials have been time tested and refined over years to be very effective. We take into consideration, really both the practical and emotional, and just how clients it creates a glide path for the client's thought process that aligns with the trust that they're building with the advisor. I believe we are the only organization that has an actual practical process that is scalable. So you can have a consistent client experience amongst multiple advisors if you have that at your firm. And it creates kind of the scaffolding so you can make sure that you collect the same sort of information from all your clients, but each advisor can kind of put their own personality into that process. It will result in very unique goals and values and financial plans for each individual. So it's not cookie cutter. And we have a lot of support and consulting that goes with actually building out your financial planning process with the tools embedded. Many of our community members would also say that one of the things they get the most value out of is being a part of this like-minded community that we have. So we also try to create events to bring our network of advisors together as frequently as possible. So that's kind of the differentiators. I'm going to give you a quick tour of our one of the advisor accounts on our website, and I'll give you kind of a breakdown of the steps of becoming a Money Quotient partner. I'm going to include a document I'll be providing to Jim so he could put it in the follow-up email that breaks down the steps as well. So has very, very specifics on the steps to becoming a Money Quotient partner. But first of all, to give you an idea of the breadth of our materials library, I mentioned that our True Wealth Planning model is 5 stages. So in order to find all the tools and practice management resources for each stage of the process, you would use this top section. So the explore stage is with a prospect. This opens up a second column that has all the materials available for the prospect stage. So up here are the actual tools available for this stage of the process. What we're looking at right now is the financial satisfaction survey. There's a PDF version, but there's also a submittable version that looks like this. Um, where you just send a link, they click on it, they fill it out, they send it back to you. These are all brandable. So your logo can show up here. They simply click on their answers of their level of satisfaction with various aspects of their financial life. They hit the submit button at the bottom, and then you get notified that they've completed this form. So here, this is an example of a very quick and easy tool for a prospect to complete, but it broadens their awareness of what they should be talking to a financial planner about. So even if they are coming in with a couple of questions, now before they can see all these different areas that they could work on. So your prospect meeting, you'll get a much better idea of what the scope of engagement might be with that client, because they'll share a lot more of their financial situation than maybe they would have just coming in with their questions. So that's kind of an example of one of the prospect tools. Um, and so, each of the tools, you don't use all of these in the first meeting, but there's ones that you might particularly select depending on who's coming in. So each stage of the process has its own tools, client-facing materials like an email template or an agenda. These are all brandable and editable. All of our practice management resources you can edit, you can take the language from. And there are also deliverables for when you are presenting a draft of your recommendations. So how do you connect what you learned about the qualitative information to directly to the recommendations? That is something that is an important part of the process. Now, this is an area that advisors go to use with existing clients. So we have materials for an annual meeting, but also when they get closer to retirement, there's a sequence of tools you can take them through to really design a retirement that's going to be fulfilling. We have some areas of behavioral issues like conflicts between spouses, overspending, or unhappy. We have post-divorce planning, legacy planning, and then if you work with business owners as well. The materials are arranged by inquiry category in this section. All practice management resources show up here. And then there's a ton of additional modules. There's an article library. These are written for clients. You can pull and use them on your blog or in a newsletter. There are also individual worksheets for all of these different types of transitions they might go through: work transitions, financial transitions, family transitions. In fact, I'll open up the empty nest one, and legacy transitions. So each worksheet gives you questions to sit down and talk about with the clients. You can lay it out, print it out, and say, let's talk about these questions. It helps you understand their perspective, their concerns, what an ideal outcome might be of that. And then the second page has a bulleted list of potential financial implications. So as your financial planner, here are the things that I would be looking to help you with. There's also resources all based on that transition as well that we have vetted. So they're research-based resources, books, organizations, websites, all having to do with that particular transition. So that is a big library as well. And then there's some more in-depth workbooks that can be provided as gifts to clients too, self-study workbooks. We have a pretty significant on-demand education archive. These are the topic areas, so prospect and marketing, refining your onboarding process, These are a list of all of the educational recordings that are in these sections. Ongoing clients, practice management, deep dives, lots of deep dives. And MQ in action has to do with our veteran advisors sharing their how they've implemented all the materials into their practice. So there's a lot a new MQ partner can learn from those. So real quick, and as I said, I will send the document that lays out much more specifically. There's three important steps in becoming a Money Quotient partner. The first is to complete our fundamentals of true wealth planning training. This is a required bit of education before you can become an MQ partner. It can be done virtually. We have one coming up October 15th. Or we have in-person trainings. The in-person is 3 days. The virtual is 5 half days. And let's see, the training options. So there's quite a bit of CE that comes with this as well. 24 CFP from the CFP board and all 12 IAR if you need IAR, all 12. So that's the first step. Then you sign up to be an MQ partner, which is a subscription model. So that is $145 a month to have access to that whole library. We do live education as well every month, at least 2 webinars that are a part of your partnership, as well as the materials directory, the on-demand education, and then access to our community of people. While you're signing up to become an MQ partner, you also choose which type of support you would like in your implementation. So there's 3 options, which I'll jump over really quickly to. There's a self-study option. The fee for each of the options we spread over the first 12 months because we do have a 1 year commitment when a person signs up. After that, it's month to month. So this would be an additional $100 a month for that first year. This, you're watching videos of demonstrations of facilitation, you're practicing listening skills, you're taking it stage by stage and understanding what to implement into your practice. There's also a community experience, which is led by myself as well as my colleague, Derek Hagan. This is a 3-month experience. We run one in the spring and we run one in the fall. But with a cohort of students, we go through this. We have study team meetings, group communication workshops where we do live demonstrations. And that has additional CE, again, all 12 IAR for that program as well. So if you take a fundamentals in October, then maybe you want to take the implementation program in the spring to cover both years. And we also have individual coaching calls with this option. The third option is the big whammy, a whole lot of personal coaching for the entire first year. We do an on-site visit that's customized based on that firm's needs. So that is option number 3. And with that, I will be quiet and see if there's any questions. We don't have any questions. We, anyone who's watching this can email me at amy@moneyquotient.com if you have additional questions.